What's up everybody, welcome back. So in the last video we started the Steam integration and currently we load into the game with our Steam name. A few people pointed out that they would like to see some way to create an offline profile so they can still create a profile and that will save. So we're going to take a look at that in this episode. It's not too much work. And we're also going to take a look at setting up our server name in this episode. Another question, or not really a question, but a remark from one of my Patreons was that the info card with the XP doesn't update after a match. So if we play an endless wave match and we die, we go back to the lobby and the card doesn't update. So we're going to take a look at that as well. And if we have some time left, we're going to start setting up the friends list. So plenty stuff to do. Let's just start today's video. There's one thing I'd like to mention, and that's if you want to become a YouTube member or a Patreon, you can get access to the premium channels in the Discord and also a download for this project. So let's dive into today's video. So let's start with the XP-Infocard in the lobby. So if we go to our widgets folder and open up the widget blueprint info card. So the problem with this is the info card actually gets all the information from the game instance, and if we are playing a match we are updating our profile on the player controller. That's simply because the player controller is easier to access for the server and the client, and if we would use the game instance there would be some problems setting up the replication. So the profile on the game instance is not updated until we enter the main menu again, and because we go straight back to the lobby, our profile doesn't update. So what we can do is simply disconnect it over here, and we're gonna check if we are in the lobby, and if we are, we're gonna force an update on the player profile. So we're gonna get the current level name. And we're gonna switch on the current level name. So we're gonna drag off here and look for a switch on string. So for the default response, we're simply gonna update the XP info. And if we're gonna update it in the lobby, so we're gonna add a string in here, and that's going to be the name of your lobby level. So for me, that's my lobby menu map. And for this one, we're going to call our game instance and then call the function check for saved profile. And what this function does is check if there's a saved profile for the slot we specify here. And if there is, it will automatically update it and load it into the game instance. So we want to drag off the game instance again, and we're going to get all our player profiles. So the string array. And we also want to get our active profile slot from the game instance. And then we can simply plug this in. So we need to get the correct array item in here, plug it in and plug in the index directly. And then hook it up like this. So if we are in the lobby, we're forcing an update on the profile in the game instance, and this will make sure it updates. So we can compile and save it, and that part should be fixed already. So now we can start taking a look at setting up the offline profile. So here's what we're gonna do for the profiles. I'm gonna add a boolean to the player profile structure that tells if it's an offline or an online profile. And if we create a profile offline, we can only use that profile to play offline matches or local area network games. If we create a profile online, we can use it to play both online and offline. So that's how it's going to work. So first of all, we need to change our player profile structure. So we're going to go to the save data, make sure everything in our project is saved, and then open up the player profile structure. Let's add a boolean in here and call this isOfflineProfile. So that's a bool, that's fine. We're gonna save the structure and only the structure, then close everything down and don't save any of the references. And we're gonna reopen the project so that way we don't break anything. So it's loading, I'll be back in a sec. So we're back up and running, and we are good to go to the framework folder and open our shooter game instance. So we want to look for the create new profile event, and over here we need to change a few things. So the main reason why a profile is not created currently is because this will return an empty string and the player name will be empty, And later on in the game instance, if we load our profiles, we actually check the player name, and if this is an empty reference, we consider the profile empty. So that's why it's currently not working, and it's pretty easy to fix. We're going to create a function to create this player profile structure, so we don't have to clutter the variables in here with all extra ones we only need in the function. So we can select this part over here. So the get Steam persona name, and then the make player profile struct with the make array nodes and all of that stuff. So we don't need a setter for the profile info or the actual event node. Then we're going to right click and we're going to collapse it to a function. And I'm going to call this function create player profile. So let's select it, and we're going to give it a few inputs. So let me double check. We have an input with a text, and that's actually the save game name. So that's good to go. Save game name. And we also want an input for the offline profile boolean. So is offline profile. And then for the output, that's the player profile structure. So that's good to go. Let's go into this function and let's set it up first. So in here, we want to grab a branch right at the beginning to see if we are creating an offline profile or not. So we're going to plug in the offline profile boolean. If that's false, we're going to get the unique Steam persona name and the net ID and that stuff, but we're going to store that in a local variable. So let's make a little bit of room over here. And let's get rid of this part. There we go. So for the persona name, let's drag off here, promote to local variable, and that's the local player name. Then we're also going to store our save game name, so that comes from the input of the event. Let's drag off here, and we're going to promote it to a local variable again, and that's our local save game name. And the last thing we want to do is store our net ID in a local variable. So that's over here, unique net ID to string. We're going to drag off the string and promote that to a local variable, local unique net ID. So make sure you hook up all three of the setters over here and then continue to the return node. So we want to hook up the local variables to our player profile structure. So we're going to plug in the local player name into the player name, and then the local unique net ID in the net ID, and the local save game name in the save game name. So for the is offline profile, we can simply plug it directly into the function node over here. So we're going to grab that from the input, and that should be good to go. So what we want to do next is set up the offline branch. So if we create an offline profile, we're going to grab our local player name. And instead of using the name from our Steam account, we're going to use the name that the player typed in for the save game name. So that's how we used to do it before we added the Steam integration. Then we're going to grab our local save game name. And I'm simply going to type offline profile in here. So this will show up in the actual list with the selected save game name. So this will indicate it's an offline profile. And then for the unique net ID, I'm going to drag it in and I'm simply going to say none. So we don't have one. And then we can plug this one back into the return node as well. And this should be good to go. So this will create the function for us. Then we can go back to the event graph. And over here, we're already calling it. So for the offline profile boolean, we can simply grab our is Steam connected bool. And then we need to flip it around. So we're going to get a not boolean and plug it in over here. So that will make sure it creates the correct profile. And that should be this part of the game instance. We do need to make a change inside of the load profile function. So let's go to load profile. And that's over here in the end. So currently we check if we have a Steam connection, and if we are not connected to Steam, we're simply loading all profiles. So we're not going to do that anymore. In this case, we only want to load the offline profiles. So we can disconnect the false pin over here, and we're going to grab another branch, plug that into the false pin, and for the condition we're going to grab our isOfflineProfile bool. So if this returns false, so it's not an offline profile, then we're not going to return it. So we're going to leave the return value empty. And if it's true, we can simply plug it back in here and we are going to return the profile. So that should be good to go as well. And now there's one thing you could do, and that's go to the all player profile slots array. And currently I have 5 array elements in here, so this means I have 5 save slots in my game. If you want to add more save slots, you simply need to add entries to the array. So I'm gonna add 5 more, so I got 10 save slots and just a little bit more room to save stuff. So all you need to do is make sure you enter a unique name for each profile, and then you should be good to go. There we go, so now we have 10 available save slots. Okay, let's compile and save the game instance, and now we want to go into the main menu to make some changes in there. So let's go to the widgets folder and open our widget blueprint main menu. That should be over here. So what I'm going to do in here is simply add a border with some text, and I'm only going to show the text if we're not online, so if we're not connected to Steam, and the text is going to say that the players can only use offline profiles to play offline, so pretty simple. So let me just grab this from my example project, and I'm gonna paste it in here. There we go. So that's really all I'm gonna do in here. So this is simply a border with some text, not connected to Steam. Please note, profiles created while being offline can only be used offline or local area network. Profiles created while being online can be used both online and offline. So I'm gonna make this border a variable, border offline profile info, and by default I have it set to hidden over here. And then we can go into the graph. And we need to make a few changes in here. So the first thing we want to do, we go to the event graph, event construct, and all the way at the end we have this branch, and over here we disable the MP game button, so we're not going to do that anymore because then we also can't play local area network. So I kind of forgot about that one, so we're simply going to remove the set enabled for the multiplayer button. For this condition, we actually don't need this part anymore because the way we load profiles changed a little bit. So we can simply get rid of this. And our condition is simply active profile index is smaller than 0. And then at the end over here, we're going to add a second branch and make sure that we plug in both of the execution pins. So also grab the false pin over here. And for this branch, we want to grab the isSteamConnected boolean, so we can get it from the GameInstance over here. Get isSteamConnected, and simply plug it in over here. And then we can grab the border we just created, so that's border offline profile info, and then set the visibility. So if we are connected to Steam, we're going to hide it, and if we are not connected to Steam, we're going to show it. So plug in the target, and for the true pin, set it to hidden, false pin, set it to visible. That should be good to go. Yes, those should be all of the changes in here. And now there's only one change inside of the player profile info. So let me switch my notes quickly. And we're going to open up our player profile info widget over here. And if we go to the graph over here, again, we have the branches where we check if we are connected to Steam, etc. So we want to change that up a little bit. We have the isSteamConnected branch. The false pin goes to the check for the isActive slot. So we want to disconnect this false pin. And we're going to grab another branch in here, plug it in. And again, we want to check if this is an offline profile. So we're going to grab this condition and simply plug it into our player profile structure at the beginning over here. So that's the same function, the event construct. And then for this branch, if this returns false, then we're going to hook it over here into the button profile set enabled false. And if it's true, we're going to hook it back up to the check for the is active slot. So again, this will make sure we only load offline profiles if we're offline. And so that should pretty much be good to go. Let's make sure that we have everything saved, and then we should be able to check this. So let's see if this part is working. We're going to grab a viewport game, so that way we're not connected to Steam. So as it mentions in the top left over here, you see the border appears and it won't select the profile by default, so it will give you the profile selection menu. And I can create a profile over here, so call this, I don't know, blunt, and accept it. So right now this is my selected profile, as you can see, blunt, and it gives us an offline profile over here. So I cannot select any of the online profiles, but I can create multiple offline profiles if I would like to. And I can switch between those. And then I can simply play multiplayer LAN, or I can go into the main menu and play a solo game, for example. So that part is working. And then if we would launch a standalone game, then we should be connected to Steam. Come on, there we go. So currently I am connected to Steam, but because previously I had an offline profile selected, it will present me with the profile selection menu. So I'm logged in with my Blunt Stuffy account, so I can only select Blunt Stuffy or empty profiles. So let me select this one, go back, and now I'm able to play online and offline. Both of that should work. And if I have my profile selected and quit the game and then simply launch it again online, then it should keep the profile. So it doesn't always display the profile selection menu, only if you switch between online and offline. So there's no actual legit profile selected. So that seems to be working if this pop-up lowers. So there we go, we have the Blunt Stuffy profile selected. So that's working and good to go, and currently we have our offline situation fixed up. So let's take a look at setting up a name for our server. So the server name, we want to open the multiplayer menu first, so the widget, and we also want to open our main menu because we're going to copy some stuff from it. So I'm actually going to copy this box with the input text so we can enter a name for our server. So let me select the border new profile. The border new profile, and I'm going to right click and copy it. Then go back to the multiplayer menu, select the canvas panel, right click and paste it. So now all we need to do is align it and rename some stuff. So first let's handle the alignment, 0.5, 0.5, and maybe move it up a little bit. Yeah, that should be fine, why not? So over here we want to change the text a little bit, possibly. So let's say create a new server. And then this is going to be the server name. Name, cancel, accept, that's fine. Now let's grab the border new profile and rename that as well. So border host game. And then for the input, we're going to change it to the input server name. There we go. Let's see, we should have the default visibility hidden, so that's good to go. Then we can go back to the main menu and we're going to go to the graph. So in here I want to copy the isValidName input function as well. So right click and we're going to copy it. Then go back to the multiplayer menu, go to the graph and right click on the functions bar over here, and then you can select paste function. So we can keep the same name, that's fine. We do want to go inside of the function and make a small change. So currently we have this input player name hooked up in here as a static value, and I want to change this as an input so we can use it for multiple text inputs. So we're going to get rid of the input player name, that's not valid anyway. And we're going to simply drag the target onto the function node so it will create the input for us and we can hook it up later. So compile that one and save it. Now we want to go to the game instance quickly to make a small change in there. So let's minimize this, go to the framework game instance folder. In the event graph, the event where we create the multiplayer session, so create MP session. In here we want to add the server name, so let's make a little bit of room. If we drag off the extra settings, we can make an array. And then for this array, we can actually make a setting with the name. So we can drag off here and make a literal session property string. So you want to grab the lower one, the string one. And then for the key, this is going to be all capitals, and that's our game name. So I'm not sure if this is a variable that's actually used by Steam, or it's simply working because we use it at the other end in the widget where we retrieve it as well. So this is actually mentioned in the documentation for the advanced sessions, so I'm just going to use this name, and if it's actually used by Steam, it will pick it up as well. So we're going to grab the value and plug it into the event. So this is going to be our server name. And that's all we need to do in here. So we can compile and save our game instance, and then we want to go back to the multiplayer menu. And we can start setting up the graph in here. So let's start in the event graph. And let me switch my notes quickly as well. So first of all, the event graph for the multiplayer menu, we want to go to the event construct. And then all the way at the end, we're simply going to grab our border host game and make sure that if we open the multiplayer menu, it's not visible. So we can actually just hook it up over here with the border server list, set visibility hidden, and that should be good. Then we want to set up a few things for the new buttons that we created. So let's start with our button host game, and we're going to create an on-clicked event. Oh yeah, obviously we already had that button because that's the button over here, and we added the accept button over here, but we do need to change how the host game button works. So we're going to go to the on-clicked event for the host game, and we need a little bit of room over here. So let's just move this stuff out of the way for now. What we want to do, we don't want to create a session immediately. We want the player to be able to enter the name. So we're going to grab our border host game and we're going to set it to visible. So set visibility, plug it in here and make it visible. Then we're going to grab our button create host. So that's actually the accept button probably. I think I named that differently. Let me double check quickly. I'm sorry. Yes, okay, so that's actually the accept button over here. So we might want to change the text, accept create host and cancel create host. Oh, freaking really. There we go. So that's a little bit more clear. So we have the button accept create host, and we have the border with the menu buttons. So that's all of the buttons on the left side to go back to the main menu and that stuff. We want to disable all of those. So set enabled and disable them. Like so. Then we're going to grab the input for the server name and clear it. So we start with an empty text box. So grab the input server name and set the text for the editable text and simply leave it empty. And then we're going to set the keyboard focus so we don't have to click on it first. So set keyboard focus. And that way we can immediately start typing. So hook up the input server name and that should be good. The next thing is the cancel button. So we don't have that one set up yet. So let's grab the button cancel create host and add an on-clicked event. Let's put it over here. So if we click cancel, we simply want to hide the border host game. So we can paste it over here and set it to hidden. And then we want to grab our border with the menu buttons and re-enable that. So copy and paste it and set the border to be enabled, so the buttons are enabled as well. And that's all we need to do for the cancel button. Then we have our button accept create host. So let's add an on-clicked event for that one, and that's after we type the name and we click accept. So we actually want to create the session. So then we can call our create MP session like we used to. And for this one, we want to hook up the input server name. So we can grab that over here, for example, and then simply get the text that the player typed in the text box. And we need to convert it to a string. So plug it in and it will convert it for you. That's good to go as well. And then all we need to do is make sure that we check if the name that the player entered is actually valid. So we're going to grab our input server name and we're going to grab an onText committed for the editable text. And let's move it over here as well. So this is where we're going to use the valid name input function from the main menu. So plug it in over here. Obviously, you can change the conditions. So currently, we're not checking if we are creating a server name that is the same name than our player, for example, or you could name anything. So you could add new conditions in this function if you would like to. I'm not going to bother. So this will simply make sure there's no spaces or any weird symbols in there. And things like that. You can make it as extensive as you would like to. For the name input, we again want to grab our input server name, and that's the target. And then we're going to drag off here and get the text from the editable text box, and that's the name input. Then we want to grab a branch and make sure it's valid. So plug it in like this. If it's not valid, then we're actually going to clear the text box and disable the create host button. So what, well, let's just do it. So we're going to grab our input server name and then set the text again. Nope. So that's for the false bin, and we simply want to clear the text. So we're going to leave it empty, and then we're going to grab our button accept create host, and we're going to set enabled to false. So we cannot create a host if the name is not valid. And then if this is true, we can simply grab the button create host and set it to be enabled, plug it into the true pin. So that should work. And now all we need to do is make a small change inside of the server row widget. So let's compile and save the multiplayer menu. And let's open our widget blueprint server row. So that's in the widgets folder over here. So what we want to do is change the way that we get the server name. So currently we're getting it from the session result and that's not working anymore. So what we want to do is, let me see, let's make a little bit of room over here. So I'm going to drag the setter for the session result over to the side. And then this get server name node, we can get rid of that one and the split string as well. So we have this part. Then from the session result, we can drag off and we can get the extra settings. So that's the array of extra settings for this session. And then we can simply drag off the extra settings and get a session property. So get session property, and we want the string one. For the setting name, that's the game name, all capital. So that's what we entered in the game instance as well. And that will simply return the server name as the setting value over here. So if we grab the pound pin, plug it in into the previous set text node where it was plugged in, and then we can grab the setting value and plug it into the to text node. And then if it doesn't find any correct settings, I'm simply going to grab the text server name, paste it over here, hook it up to the not found pin, and I'm simply going to type a GDR shooter in here. So that will be the name if there's no name found. And then plug it back in here. Plug it back into the next node. So plug it in here. So this is the same node, it's just a different text, and then we're setting the number of players over here. Okay, so that should make the server name work as well. Let's see. Oh yeah, there was one small thing I wanted to do. If we go to the designer over here. Oh no, that wasn't the server row. No, so the server row is good to go. We can save that. And that was actually in the... Let me double check the profile info. So if we open up the player profile info, in the previous episode we added one line of text in here, and now our image is stretched. So if you select the image and simply set the vertical alignment to center, then it will make sure the image is nicely squared again. So that's a little side note I wanted to make as well. Okay, so I'm gonna save this and let's see if we actually didn't mess up. So I have packaged the game and copied it to my other computer so I can properly test it. So I'm gonna run the game. On the other computer I've hosted a session and created a server with the name Stuffy's server. So now we should be able to go in there if it actually launches my project. Oh freak, it's on the other monitor of course, and that other monitor is actually showing my other PC, so let me quickly get it sorted. There we go, and now I can drag this over here and change my screen again. Okay, sorry for that. So first of all I need to create a profile, so this is going to be Blunt, and I'm actually logged into my Blunt Stuffy account on Steam. So now for multiplayer online connection, let's search for a game. And over here we have our Stuffy server, and that's actually the correct one. So this GDR shooter one is accidentally something I added in the widget, so I can show that a little bit later. You shouldn't have this one in there. So the server name is actually working, and I can simply click it and I should connect to it. There we go. So that's working, and you can see if I would host a game right now, I'm presented with a little pop-up, and in here I can type the server name, and if that's not valid, so if it's all spaces for example, the accept button will not be enabled, and otherwise I can create a server like so. So that's working. We have the offline profiles working, and currently if I play a little endless wave, then you would see the XP over here updates as well, so we can give that a quick go and then we should be good for today. So I'm just gonna kill one or two of these guys so I have a little bit of XP, and then we should be able to test it. There we go, so I got 100 XP. And now I'm gonna get killed, and if I go back to the lobby I should have an updated info card as well. So there we go, 100 XP, so that's working. Okay, so that's all I got for you guys today. I think I'm gonna wait with the friends list till the next episode. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like, and I'll be back soon for more. Talk to you later guys, bye bye.